Welcome to TEPSA Talk, the podcast where leaders inspire, share, and grow together. TEPSA is dedicated to celebrating the incredible work happening in education. Each episode, we dive into meaningful conversations with leaders, change-makers, and innovators who are shaping the future of our schools. Whether you're looking for fresh ideas, encouragement, or a little spark to fuel your passion, TEPSA Talk is here for you. Imagine tuning in to hear how leaders are revolutionizing their schools, tackling challenges head-on, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Grab a coffee, hit play, and let's grow together. Welcome to TEPSA Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TEPSA Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Nesloney, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled each week to bring you different guests from around the world, and today I am so excited for all of you to get to meet and learn from Brett. Brett, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me, Todd. I'm a teacher from Pennsylvania. I've been teaching middle school for 20 years, and then I moved to high school for the last 2 years, so I have experience with grades 8 through 12. And I'm really happy to be here talking about literacy a bit and a little touch of AI as well.
I love it. Well, Brett has written several incredible books. He does not give himself enough credit, and he's doing a lot of awesome things online. And so I really wanted to bring Brett on to let us have that middle school perspective of things that we do, because we've had so many great conversations with elementary, but there's also some really good stuff with middle school too. So Brett, kind of give us a little background of when literacy became a passion of yours. At some point, you knew that was kind of the path you were going to take. So what was the driving factor for you?
Yeah, middle school, ironically, in my own life, was the time when I probably wrote and read the least. I was very engaged in elementary school. I had some amazing elementary school teachers who gave me opportunities to write my own little books and take things I was, reading and transform them into my own pieces of writing. But then middle school, when things became a little more lockstep, right? It became a little more organized and less personalized, I felt, than elementary school. Some of those things waned, and I had to kind of find my way back to my love of reading and writing in high school and college and beyond. But I did realize in high school that I really enjoyed not just reading books, but talking to others about them, engaging others in passionate debates about things that we were reading. And I also found that writing was a good habit that helped me to think better. So I think that's a key reason why I love teaching writing, is it's not just teaching how to get words on a page, it's teaching how to think.
I love that so much. And, our audience is primarily school administrators, whether that's instructional coaches, principals, assistant principals, or even superintendents and central office people. And so if they're listening today and they really want to be as strong of a supporter as possible for literacy and for those English and reading and writing teachers, what are some things that you would give as advice for ways that administrators can best support literacy on their campus?
I think remembering to give opportunities for full book reading is really important in middle school. Choice will often have kids reading longer than they would if they were assigned a book. It's certainly important to assign reading and to have everybody reading something together. But I think allowing book length choice reading is really, really important in keeping middle school students engaged, in my experience. I also want to say that creative writing, don't underestimate it. We focus so much on the kind of analytical writing that is tested. But creative writing is where our heart gets a little more involved, telling our own stories, creating fiction, writing poetry, and imitating published poets, as my book Poetry Pauses works with quite a bit. These things help us to see that language can shine. And when we have that appreciation, we're going to do better on the analytical, academic, test-ready writing too. But if we only work with those very narrow fields that are tested, we can really lose writers who would otherwise be passionate.
Yeah, and I think having administrators that can really encourage that side of things, where it's not just the focus on making sure that they're ready for the test, I think is so huge. And so you've got actually a brand new book out. Tell us about your new book.
So it's a veer from the first one. The first one I said was Poetry Pauses. Quick shout out to my elementary school principal who first acknowledged my aptitude for words and poetry, and in sixth grade. I'll never forget him. But I wanted to point out too, my new book is a veer away from that. It's Artful AI and Writing Instruction, grades 6 through 12. I really pull from my experience as a middle school English teacher in this book. and also my new experiences over the past 2 years of working with writing instruction in the age of AI. We probably all first encountered this as a way where students were trying to evade work with artificial intelligence. And maybe that's our first instinct as well. Can I evade some of this labor so that I can devote my energy to something better in school? And that's not a bad instinct. But we want to make sure that we're not, I said earlier that my draw to literacy is that I want writing and thinking to develop together. And we have to make sure that we're giving students the skills they need and the practice they need so that they can think well in an AI world.
I love this so much because it's so timely and it's so important because just like you just shared, sometimes we think of AI as this big negative thing, or it's just going to let them bypass the work and nothing else. And so thinking about this book and all the research you put into it and all the work and the writing, what is one of the most things you're excited about people understanding when they pick up this book and read it?
Yeah, I think I've discovered ways, both through my own practice and through the research in the book, that AI generating text quickly can, rather than replace us, it can push us to think more because it can help us to take something to analyze. So for instance, AI will often produce something that's glossy and perfect and will make any middle school kid jealous because it sounds so much, quote, better than they do, right? That's how they are going to feel about it. I actually interview a student in the book who talks about that and says, oh, it sounded so much better than me. Like, how can you resist that? But in reality, we can step back and say, what is it doing well here? Are there sentence structures and things we can learn from the way this computer's generating text and apply it to your work and elevate the way you sound? On the flip side of that, can we identify where and why this computer-generated text sounds computer generated, sounds soulless, a lot of people describe it as, sounds recycled, which it is. And now let's look at your voice and say, where in your writing, as imperfect as it is, do we hear you? I really want kids to take that away, not just from the activities in this book, but also from my practice in the classroom. We need to let them know more than ever before that we value their individual voice in their writing, because that's what AI can't produce. And if they want to continue to improve on their skill, if they want to continue to stretch their syntax with the AI as a mentor, that can be helpful. But we need to value the voice which they bring to the table.
Well, when you have those administrators and those educators that you're talking to about these kind of things, I know you're going to run into some who are very adverse to AI or very nervous about utilizing it or things like that. What advice do you have for those who are like, how am I supposed to help kids when, I don't even know if I trust it or feel comfortable with it?
Right. Honestly, that was my first feeling in working with AI, and it persists, Todd. I'm not here to, I certainly never want people to feel like I'm the poster child for AI or pushing it in any way. I'm really not. There are those enthusiasts, and it is not me. But I will say that I think we need to be realistic and say this thing is here, and kids are using it already. So if we're not taking the time to figure out something productive to do with it and to show them what the difference is between something that's pushing your thinking and something that's stealing an opportunity for thought, then the bad wins, right? The downside of this wins if we're not there to give them any counterweight to that. Conversely, if we are taking time to say, hey, instead of using it this way to replace your thinking, what if you had it create this text in a couple different tones and then gathered vocabulary for the tone that you wanted to go for and applied that back in your own writing? See, that's productive. Now we're acquiring a skill and we're pushing our own thoughts, integrating it with our writing rather than replacing it.
I love that. Well, when we think about middle school, I've met teachers who unexpectedly moved up or moved down to middle school. I've met administrators who had never had any middle school experience, and then they're hired to kind of lead a middle school. What are some misconceptions about middle school, or like when you get down here to middle school, you need to be ready for this if you've never done middle school before?
Well, I want to say that I never planned on teaching middle school. I went to college thinking I was going to teach high school, and then I got a job in middle school and thought I'm going to just work my way into the high school as soon as I possibly can. But by year 2, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. I need to get better at this. And then I really loved my time working middle school. So what do people need to know? What are the misconceptions? Middle school is high energy, which requires a lot from the teacher, a lot from the administrators. It's high emotion, which I think requires a special skill set from administrators. But with that comes this really cool intersection of developing skill. Their skills are becoming like the skills of a teenager. Um, and they still have the enthusiasm of a younger child sometimes. And that's like such a beautiful intersection and such an opportunity, especially for people working in literacy, to capitalize on what they're bringing that still feels very young and what they're bringing that feels like a stretch to something older. I love teaching high school too, but I do miss some of that childlike wonder that middle school kids can bring to things.
I love the way you describe that, and that's such a cool way to look at it. Sometimes when we think about certain grade levels that we haven't had experience with, we talk so negatively about it based on stereotypes. But that was such a beautiful way to describe the middle school experience as an educator. Okay, so I'm listening today and I'm thinking, okay, we've talked about this literacy and connecting and all this. So what are some books that you love to use with your students, or that you personally have read recently that you love? If you were to get just any kind of, and it doesn't have to be a book meant for an adult. It can be a book that you're like, oh, I just love reading this with eighth graders, or whatever it is. What books would you say are some of your favorites that you've read recently, or all-time favorites?
Yeah, so you have me thinking about the sort of middle grade and YA world right now with that question. So let me share a couple of those. I love Alan Gratz's books because when I have a 10th grader come to me who says, I don't really love reading, they have typically had a good experience with an Alan Gratz book before, and I'm perfectly comfortable giving them another one to read even in 10th grade as a free choice. And here's why. Even though he's writing for a somewhat younger audience, the complexity of his narratives and the way he teaches about history and helps us to see that history is complicated and not a single story. I just love it. Whether we're talking about the book Grenade or Refugee, I learn a lot about history from his books. And that gives me great things to talk about with students as well. So I would say anything by Alan Gratz almost can illuminate corners of history that kids don't know much about. I'm also going to give a shout out to Randy Rabai, who wrote The Patron Saints of Nothing for slightly older kids, but middle school kids have loved that as well. I learned so much about the history of the Philippines through that book. He has a new book out called Everything We Never Had, which is a really cool generational story of a Filipino-American family and how perspectives on reasons for moving and reasons for making changes in your family change over generations that I loved as well. So I would give a shout out to that author as well.
So I cannot wait to add that to my to-be read pile, but I will back you up on this. Alan Gratz, love his books. I mean, I'm an adult and I love reading his books for exactly the way you described it. Refugee is like one of my all-time favorite books of his, so love it. Okay, as we begin to wrap this up, Brett, if you just want to leave one nugget of wisdom that you're like, okay, guys, I don't care what you've been listening to me say, this is what I want you to walk away with. Like, this is the one thing I want to make sure that you hear from me today. What would be your one thing?
Don't forget the value of small things. So for an administrator, that's going to mean, and I know this is a point you talk about a lot too, Todd, but that's going to mean working with the individual student and treating them as individuals. For the classroom teacher, I'm going to pull from both my books here, whether it's a poetry pause, a brief moment to pause and look at a poem and illuminate something that's going to help for the rest of the lesson, or whether it's dabbling live in front of the class, hesitant though you are, with an AI tool, and talking them through, thinking aloud through your process, your hesitations and apprehensions. Those are a couple examples of how just small things can have great power in the classroom and within the school community.
I love it. Well, Brett, if people want to connect with you or learn more about you and your work, where can they go?
Yeah, so my website is my name.com, brettvogelsinger.com. And you can find me at The Vogelman on most social media. And LinkedIn is another place I've been connecting with more and more people lately.
Well, I am so thankful for you to have been here today. Thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of the TEPSA Talk Podcast. Hopefully you had a lot of great takeaways. I know I did, and I can't wait to go check out these books. But we will see you again next week with an all-new guest.
Thanks.